A few days ago, news hit the headlines of a partnership between one of Nigeria's foremost agencies, independent agencies, if I may say so. It's a powerhouse, award-winning agency, 360 agency, done really, really great work. Um, Globally acclaimed, shared the global stage at places like Cannes Lions and so on and so forth, led by an led by a perfect gentleman, a perfect gentleman, if I may say, a stylish one as well, but incredibly brilliant man, by the name Steve Babaeko, who is, I dare say, a living legend in the bare minimum in the West African market, and by extension, the rest of the continent. And that announcement came that Extreme Ideas was partnering with another agency somewhere in, I think that's the southeast of Africa, and it was just interesting for me because I had to go and check, like, who is this person, who is this agency, like, so I couldn't help but to reach out to the CEO. I don't think she likes to be called the CEO because everywhere I check, she's the creative director or something like that. I don't know, but I'm going to choose to call you CEO anyway. So I chose to reach out to the CEO, the business leader, one of the creative leaders as well at this agency from Mozambique, southeast of Africa, IKIGAI 360. And I have with me on the episode today, Joana Prista. Joana, how you doing?
Thank you so much for inviting me to this. It was a good surprise, I must say, and I'm doing well. It's been an overwhelming week, from all the love, all the news outlets, everything that it's happening, and of course, and you said it right, this Steve and and his team, they're amazing. So I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more fulfilled, I must say, and so yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I mean, once the announcement came out, obviously with all the, messages and well wishes and stuff, I mean, whether it was under Steve's post, whether it was under your post, I follow both of you on Instagram as well. So I could see all of the sort of like messages coming in the comment section and stuff like that. So a huge congratulations to both companies because I'm pretty sure it's a value exchange in terms of, what they are able to do by virtue of this partnership and what you are able to do by virtue of this partnership as well. So a huge congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
I wanted to start off by asking you, so what does this partnership between Ikigai 360 and Extreme Ideas actually look like? What is the scope? And I think also to ask you, why now? What does this look like? What's the scope like? And why now?
Okay, so first of all, being I was born and raised in Mozambique, so I'm Mozambican. My parents are Portuguese. I'm descendant, but in my heart, I'm African 1,000%. When I was little, for me, like being Mozambican, having a passport was a dream. So when I got that, for me, it was like now I have a document that shows who I am, right? So for me, we've been kind of talking about this since last year. There was a lot of, okay, how do we move? Let's sign a memorandum. Let's do this. Okay, so now how does it look like in terms of the universe? How do we put it out there? How do we contact our clients? How do we move forward from a document and actually putting out action into it? The why now, I think it was because of all this like well thought out and steps we took, and then of course managing agencies and different countries, it's a very busy job. So I think me and Steve were also sometimes we were like, okay, let's talk next week or let's do and we are kind of okay. The why now, I think it was because the universe told us like it's now, right? It will
Gotcha.
happen now. When I say the universe, it's more like we were in a place that we both could handle the all this attention, all these communications, and the moving forward with the clients. So I think it happened in the right time. I always think like that. So it happens when it needs to happen. In
Interesting.
terms of what it looks like for me, and I think it's kind of a proud moment for not for me as the CEO. And yes, I'd rather be called the creative director because CEO comes with that, heaviness of yes. But and I'm creative by heart. So for me, being a creative director is more about it. But yes, of course, you can call me that. But it comes with that responsibility and proudness of we are African, we are independent, and we are doing things together, which I think we need to have more in our continent, right? So and I think the first thing I when I met with Steve online, for me was the first time I was like, can we talk about this? He's like, oh yeah, of course. And I booked like 1 hour for the meeting, and he said, and the meeting was like 15 or 20 minutes, and he said, no, I'm okay, I got you. I understood what you want. Let's move forward because I think African companies should do this more often. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was so like well received and well and practical, and for me, I was like, let's move forward. Let's do this.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Where would you say? Because I think I read somewhere that about your sort of like creative philosophy about being human centered or human centric. I think.
Yeah.
And obviously with Extreme Ideas and Steven team as well, I'm sure they also kind of have their own philosophies around creativity and so on and so forth. I, I'm wondering, where did you find the biggest synergy? Because again, there has to be something that makes it make sense. Do you get what I mean? So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
look at Extreme Ideas, where did you find the biggest synergy? Like why did this make sense? Where did you find the biggest synergy?
I think the same ambitions, if I
Mm,
must say that. So we are both going. I know that and I think I'll be going back to that specific sentence a lot of times during this
no
conversation.
worries.
Is
No
again
worries.
being African and expanding to the world. We have that ambition. Usually what we see, especially I'm talking about Mozambique because I know that that's the reality, but multinationals always come from abroad, Europe, United States, other countries to Africa, right? So for us, and I get goosebumps talking about this, it's like we are Africans and we are I'm not saying controlling, but we are moving on to the world. So we're going the opposite direction. And for me, Extreme Ideas and all the synergy is about that same ambition of we can speak African, we can understand Africa, we can know. And one of the things that I think Africans know how to do best is create something with nothing, right? So there's no budgets, there's no materials, there's sometimes, and again, Mozambican reality, we have very few factories, so we need to import everything. So, and all of those things, but at the same time, clients and multinationals expect you to produce things like we have everything, right? So having that knowledge and that low budget experience, and how can we create something meaningful and impactful and with results and all of those things that campaigns and clients want, but knowing how to do that with very few resources or
Yeah.
fewer than when you have there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it's that.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. I think my next question is along the lines of these kinds of partnerships and these kinds of integration sometimes can be challenging in terms of like aligning teams, systems, markets, even languages. You and I just had that conversation before we started, recording this. What were some of the hurdles you had to go through in putting this together? Was there a moment where you felt like, oh man, is this going to work, or this partnership has to work? What did you have those moments?
I haven't had those moments because I think, speaking from my team, for example, they're very excited. For them is like, okay, so we expanded to Portugal now, but at the same time, it came this huge news about like a lot more locations that we can uh, create and help our clients in many different locations, right? At the same time, when we were doing the campaign, the launching and all that, like the communication, of course, sometimes because we still have work to do, our clients can't be put less because of this. So we were, but even if it was like at 10 p.m., we were like, okay, so let me reply to this email because tomorrow morning someone on Steve's side or will see it, or sometimes we will get an email at that hour, because we're trying to accommodate what we could, the best we could. So I didn't feel like it was complicated or heavy, or we have, of course, different ways of working, and I think the markets are very different, and that's something that we have that idea and that notion, that markets are very different. And for us, for example, PR campaigns in Mozambique and the media outlets communicating like something big happening, it was not as easy, for example, as I felt it was on Extreme Ideas side, right? Because and this comes with a bit of like a proudness, and I know that, for example, Nigerians are very proud of someone on our side did this, right? And let's put it out there, let's push it further than it is now. And we still have a long way to go in that sense in Mozambique. But I feel that it was worse before, but at the same time, it's like, oh, we have this news, this Mozambican agency is expanding and doing this, and they're like, okay, so you want to do an advertising? And I'm like, no, we want news, right? So it was different in terms of the scope of work and how the different markets work. But that, I think that's one of the main things we are trying to explore with this partnership is, culturally speaking, we can have that representation, that knowledge with both sides, telling each other like, okay, in Mozambique this doesn't work like this, in South Africa doesn't work like this, in Portugal doesn't work like this. So, but in terms of joint work, and we felt on both sides that everybody was doing their best to make it happen. So for us was never that this won't work, but at the same time, it has to work, and it will work.
It will work. It will work. It will work. Somebody say amen. So there's recently there was news, not so recent anymore anyway. The Up and Up group, it was formerly known as MNC Saatchi Group in South Africa. They recently bought back the equity held by the global MNC Saatchi Group. This means the South African creative group is now 100% owned by its founding partners and is fully independent. The affiliation still exists, but it's fully owned by its founders. In your view, what does the partnership, signal for agencies in Africa, and what you guys are doing in terms of being, truly and fully African? What does that mean for the continent? I mean, you had spoken about it earlier, like maybe we need to see more of these. But what does it mean to you, if you don't mind speaking a bit more about it? What does it mean to you? Are we seeing some kind of a shift to this? As time goes on, what is this sort of convergence of truly independent, fully African-owned agencies? What does it mean to you, and what do you think? Are we seeing a shift?
I think we are, but I don't think it's just for agencies. I think it's the entire continent and the entire mindset, right? Because I think it's getting to a point where, and I know I don't want to touch on social and economic and political things, but what we're seeing in the world right now, outside of Africa, right? I think it's waking us up to like, okay, this is not something that should be happening. How can we do this together? And there's a lot of countries and a lot of companies and a lot of African, right, companies and countries and governments and entrepreneurs, and that they are saying, okay, enough is enough, and we need to do this our way, the African way, together. So the opening, and you go to things like opening the countries without a visa for different African travelers, for example. So all of those things, it means that even if it's slowly, we are all getting to that place that we need to be together, right? And for agencies, I think it goes to that as well. Like we're seeing that, for example, and this still happens. I'm not saying it doesn't, but before we would be like, oh, let me go to Ogilvy, let me go to DDB, let me go to all this, and I want to pay you to have your name on my wall, right? because then I'll be Ogilvy Mozambique. And I'm just using these names for the sake of it. It
I get
happens with
you.
a lot of different ones.
Yeah, different
But
names. Yeah,
exactly because we are having that moment that do we need to go outside if we have something great inside, right? And I think we're finding that voice. I think we are, or even if it's not just finding, we are putting it out there, right? We are trying. It's not just inside. It's more like, okay, now we can be vocal about it. We can go and say we can do this together. We still have a long way to go, of course. I'm not saying
yeah,
it's going to be like this, but
absolutely.
yeah, I think it's in that sense, and it's just again, it's not just for agencies,
Yeah,
but I think in the creative department, African agencies and people can bring so much more to the table. So, not so much more, but they can bring a lot to the table,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We can, again, going back to doing things without. We have an expression in Portuguese. I don't know if you have it in English, which is doing omelets without eggs. So we kind of we are masters of that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that is kind of being searched for, and we
yeah,
are even being proud of that. Not just the omelets without the eggs, but the being
yeah.
African, having our own voice, our vibrant cultures, how we do things, and how can we do them together. So yeah, I think we are seeing a shift. I hope it comes faster and bigger, but we still have a long way to go.
I think that was my best part of this conversation. I absolutely love the conversation about Africa, and how that there's so much more that Africa is about than what you see on news headlines globally. And when I see moments like this, especially in an industry where I've also spent a decent amount of time, almost over 2 decades now, I'm I'm proud to see things like this happening. I had the opportunity of speaking with the group CEO of the Up and Up group, and he also spoke about that experience and that and what that meant, buying back control in that sense. So I'm really really proud of this moment, just like you guys are. I'm sure that I speak for lots of people who are watching from the sidelines. As I start to break this home. Um, I think one of the questions I also wanted to ask you in terms of, and you kind of touched on it just now, about what I mean. We're not saying it's going to be all gravy and caviar, you know, but the question is, now that the partnership is public, yeah, what's your biggest? What's your first? What do you think is your first big test? Or area of collaboration that you are eager to explore? Like, what do you think is your first big test or an area that you are eager to explore with this partnership? Something pretty specific.
Okay. Oh, that's I think it will be kind of sharing because we put that to test in the launch of the news, but putting it together for a client's work, I think it will be the next, not the only, not the first, because we had one, but the next step and the next test. In terms of, okay, so how do we listen to each other, which I think it will go amazingly. But it's more in a sense of how do we make the client, which, for example, if it's a client from our side or a client from Extreme Idea side, or even a completely new one, like how do we make them understand that although it's two different entities, we are still one for you, right?
Interesting.
So I
Yeah.
think that will be specifically, I think that will be the next test.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think because of the relationship that we forged, I don't know if that's the right word, but that we
That's the
kind
right
of,
word.
it is, that we forged through this launch and through these months of going back and forth and all of that, and respecting each other's times. And I think we got that sense of we can do this together. I think it's just then making the clients understand that we, for example, if they speak to Steve, they're speaking to me as well. If they speak to me, they're speaking to Steve as well. So kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
having that
Yeah.
trust
Yeah. Yeah.
and mindset from the clients, but
Yeah.
it'll go great.
Interesting, interesting. Wow, thank you very much for your time, Joanna. I have one more question, and
Yes.
the challenge you cited, what you cited just now, I think it's something that every company that's got some form of holding structure has to deal with in terms of understanding that all of these different entities, they all add up to this one compelling proposition, for the client. And I think that, as time goes on, with some more work done around, the marketing or the branding for both entities in terms of how that partnership serves clients, I think that, the task will be easier for sure. Um, the last question I have is, if you had to sum up this moment, um, both personally and professionally, right? If you had to sum up this moment in 3 words, what what would those 3 words be?
Okay, 3 words. So first of all, I'd say bold. Uh, I think it's bold. Um, I couldn't finish this without saying African. uh, it was right there, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the third one, I would have to say a milestone, because if I can explain just quickly why do
Please
I
go
say
on. Please go on.
milestone is both Extreme Ideas and Ikigai 360. We kind of have like expanded to places where we speak the language, right? So in terms of milestone, is like, okay, so now we have other countries, different languages, and different ways of speaking, communicating. So I think it's a milestone in terms of that, because expansion has always been, or is it in our DNAs? It's just a matter of, okay, now we can have different languages attached to it, right? So I think it's a milestone as well.
That's incredible. That's amazing. I think, when as I listen to you, I you have such a warm personality, and I have no doubt that as just as just as a human being, you're a great person. I have no doubts about that. I think, even though I said that was my last question, but now I'm forced to ask you this. You know, what about your journey? Growing up, whether it's schooling, family, neighborhood, college or university, or your first job, or whatever it is. What about your journey makes this moment even more significant?
Ooh, well, as was not expecting that that personal question.
I apologize.
Having no problem. I don't know if it's just one, but for me was, and I think many entrepreneurs go about it, so it will maybe sound like a cliche, but I started Ikigai because I'm creative, right? So I started as like, I had 12 clients alone. I was doing social media, invoicing, client management, social media answers, boosts, all of those things alone, branding, logos, all of these things alone, right? And then hiring the first person, the second, having now a team, departments, and all of that structure. And then, like, for me, having this is more like a stamp to, you're doing things right. Because as
Wow.
entrepreneurs, we doubt ourselves a lot,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's a very lonely, and again, everything that I'm saying is a lot.
Yeah.
People read about it, so it's
Yeah.
cliche, but I think cliches are there because they exist and they're true.
Absolutely.
Um, so for me, it was more like, okay, so if Extreme trusted you, and if you're trusting Extreme, so we are doing something right. So
Wow.
for me, it's that confirmation that the world doesn't give us, right? So when something like this happens, it's like, you're doing great. So for me, it
Wow.
was that, yeah.
Wow, amazing. At this point, I have no further questions. Like they say, I have no further questions. Thank you so much, Joanna Prista, for your time. I wish nothing but success and great things, for Ikigai 360 and for extreme ideas as well. I mean, Steve, I have a decent relationship with. He's been on my platform, The Diary of a CMO. Incredible episode, incredible human being. By the way, if you want to listen to that episode, I'll just leave a link in the description so you go and listen to it. Incredible episode with Steve.
Go
So
listen
I
to
have
it.
no doubt. I have
Amazing.
no doubt that the partnership that you have is an amazing one. It's a great one, and I wish nothing but success for both companies. Thank you very much for your time, Joanna.
Thank you. And hopefully I'll meet you soon in person.
Hopefully, I can't wait.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much
Bye
for
bye.
the invitation.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
guys, for
so much.
listening. I'll see you in the next one. See you at work.